Dr. Beverly Crusher is looking forward to working with her dear friend, Dr. Dalen Quace. Beverly calls Worf the big guy who never smiles, and Tau Alpha C is 123 days away at Warp 9. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4. I almost said Season 5. Season 4, Episode 5, Remember Me, story by Ralph Phillips, written by Lee Sheldon, directed by Cliff Bole. This was October 20th, 1990. Where were you? What's up, Sirach? How are you today?
I'm good. I am good.
I have
How
a
about you?
correction. I'm okay, but we start off poorly. I have a correction. It was not story by Ralph Phillips. That was left over from last week. That's why I had a
Okay.
couple notes from last week still up. It still says Suddenly Human and story by Ralph Phillips. That's why I got the 4 and 5 mixed up. But anyway, written by Lee Sheldon, directed by Cliff Bole, October 20th, 1990. I'm doing great.
Okay.
Can I just be honest here? And everybody, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that, everybody. Make sure you are subscribed to our audio podcast and our YouTube channel. Sirach, I remember this episode. And I have thoughts on this episode. But I would love to hear yours.
Well, this episode gave me a great feeling of old school science fiction the way I remember it being. So this episode had the feel of a Twilight Zone episode, which is to me the gold standard of science fiction, storytelling, fantasy. It's just the best way to write something, the best way to present it to the audience and unfold the story. And for me, this meets that level of quality that I have seen in the past with Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone, because of the level of horror that was kind of eminent and kind of lingering, and the fear that it causes you if you were to place yourself in that same position, which you do normally, naturally, as an audience, viewing the episode. So it causes a certain level of anxiety just watching it, just trying to puzzle solve on it. Like, what would I do? Or who's right and who's wrong, and what is the solution? And sometimes the solution is like really easy to see in Star Trek, where it's like clearly just, these guys are trying to exterminate a whole village of people. That's not the right answer. But in this case, I would have been wrong if I was the captain in this episode. I would have had I would have had Dr. Crusher confined to the room. I'd be like, Jesus.
He almost did. Actually, he kind of did. He did say, maybe you should confine yourself to sick bay.
Yeah, I would have been on that early. Because already from the beginning, I was thinking that. I was thinking, what the hell's wrong with her? She's seeing stuff that hasn't, that's not there. Because in my mind, certain people's credibility is unimpeachable. So when Chief O'Brien says, I didn't see anything, I'm thinking this guy's, his word is his bond. So he's not lying.
Yep. Data. How is Data going to be wrong?
Data was like, no, that's not correct. And so it makes you question your own. Like, I had to, when numbers were being passed around, like how many people are on board the ship, I was thinking, how many people are on board a ship? Like, I had to go back in my memory of conversations of people saying there's about 1,000 people on board, the ship. But I forgot, and so I started to question that, because Picard was so sure that no, that's the number that we normally always have. So I don't understand, and Data too, and everybody else. So And then when people start disappearing, that's when I was like, oh, this is dope. This is a good episode.
Well, yeah, just when you're talking about Picard, uh, a lot of things popped in my head. My first thought was like Captain Mansplain for this episode. But everybody, this episode could have just been like mansplaining, like everybody going like, no, what are you talking about? Like, or gaslighting, you know.
Yeah,
Season 4,
yeah,
episode 5, the gaslighters, you know. When she says,
yeah.
when she says, Data, if there's only 100 people on the ship, what's with all the empty halls? Why is this so empty? And he's like, yeah, storage, rescuing people, but you could go on and on. And she's like, shut the well, it's interesting because I really like this episode a lot. I think
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite episodes, and it's always been one of my favorite episodes. I think it's always been my favorite Beverly Crusher episode. Um, Not that there's a ton to choose from, but she does have some great moments and some good episodes also upcoming. But I really like this episode a lot. And when I was watching it, it wasn't any worse or better than I remember it. It was right on spot on, maybe slightly better. But I remember watching it going, oh man, I hope it's not too slow for Srock. I hope it's not too boring because I have the benefit of knowing that it was a good episode in hindsight, but I don't remember if it was a good episode as I'm going through it. You know, I'm like, oh shit. I hope Srock doesn't hate this episode. Man, that would suck. But I'm so happy to hear that you do like it. I think it's a great episode. I mean, obviously I can nitpick, there are a few things that, whatever you can fix
Yeah.
for everything always.
Yeah.
But in general, it just told a great story with a great twist, and it keeps you guessing, and it keeps you guessing in a good way. Sometimes they keep you guessing just to keep you guessing, like that show Lost back in the day. They would just drop in these mysteries here and there, and they wouldn't even they would only resolve like 1/3 of the mysteries they would give you. Whereas this one wasn't giving you a twist just to give you a twist. You're just following the story and you're following the path. And then finally you start going, aha, and it explains it. The whole thing was great. You don't even need the stuff with the traveler, but it was good to see him again. It could have just, we could have not even used him, but it was nice. It was another addition. It was just a good, solid story through line all the way through. The delivery was great. Everything just kept disappearing one by one. Um, Excellent episode to me. I was very happy with it.
100% agree with you. And I'm going to agree with the part that you didn't need the traveler. It's funny to me that a guy has the name the traveler, but you can locate him. How do you locate the traveler? He's always on the move. The fact that they're like, well, maybe he's at his house and yeah, we'll stop by that planet and go ring up the traveler up there.
Yeah.
Go through the yellow pages.
Yeah, why don't they just have him on every mission then? If he's their phone a friend, just
exactly.
bring him along.
Like, is he that easy to find? Like, I don't know. He jumps around he jumped on the starship at one point, right? We saw him before, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the actor's name who played? Is that Eric Menyak?
Yep, exactly. Eric Menyak. Yeah, that was our guy. We had him as a guest when Denise was here. Great guest, great guy. He does great work as a children's attorney, if I remember correctly. Really cool guy. Yeah. It was great to have him. And he's also a guest at Star Trek Las Vegas. So that's always fun to see him there. But anyway, yeah. So it was nice to see the Traveler again. It's always cool to see him.
Cool to see him. Didn't necessarily need him to move the story forward. That they did try to make it a little, like he was the missing link to solving the puzzle. So that was, I guess the way they wanted to incorporate it. But I think it could have been solved just between Geordi and Wesley. Geordi working back. What did you do? What happened here? What time? What was the exact moment? Da 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 da. And they could have reverse engineered, through that. But nonetheless, I thought Gates McFadden gave her best performance so far on the show in this episode. Ultimately, because she was given the opportunity to carry in an episode, so she could have probably displayed the same level of, just great performance in something else, but she doesn't get that much opportunity. She gets small moments, which she makes the most of, by the way. And it's just, you know, I have a whole new respect for her as an actor by watching the show, just because I can see how wonderful she is on this on Next Generation. And I didn't really know her from her performance; just knew her as as Gates. But now that I'm watching her as an actor, I was blown away. I gave her 4 stars in this episode for the performance myself. Just moments that I thought were great when she's sitting down with Patrick Stewart in that scene. What kind of, it might be the scene behind you,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's just before he disappears, and she's about to reveal something to him, like that she wants to say, that she's like, I may not get this opportunity to tell you something, but I want to tell you. And she's going to say, she says, Jean-Luc, you and I, and he disappears. But just that performance right there, the way she was holding back, like she was about to reveal a secret of hers, it felt like,
yeah.
and I think she just blew me away with her performance, because it's not easy to carry an episode. There's nobody to lean on. You're by yourself for a good part of this episode, and her and the computer and her solving the puzzle by herself, all was done great. So she blew me away.
The question is, Sirach, what was the secret she was about to tell her? What could it possibly have been? Who knows? Nobody could ever guess what that may have been, but
Yeah.
maybe we'll see the answer to that secret someday in the upcoming seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation. I'll give you a hint: coffee and croissants. That's her big secret, I think. Well, no, maybe that's Picard's secret. Never mind. I'm moving on. So the point is that I totally agree with you. And this is one of the things that made The Next Generation so good, especially in the later seasons, are these episodes about a certain character. It doesn't always have to be the Picard
Yeah.
show. Picard doesn't always have to save the day. Picard doesn't always have to have all the answers. Picard doesn't have to be the main character. Sometimes it could be Beverly. I mean, it could have been Geordi, could have been Worf. You could
Yeah.
really have made it anybody. And a lot of shows might have made it Picard since he's the main character. But it's cool that, I mean, obviously Beverly was the right choice because it was also Wesley was connected. But if Gates wasn't available that week or something, they could have, repurposed it into a Geordi episode, for example, or whatever, or a Worf. But it was really cool
Yeah.
just to see, a Beverly Crusher episode that wasn't just a medical episode. Let them stretch their legs, let them, show off their acting chops, because otherwise she's just like, okay, well, all I'm ever going to get is medical episodes, and those are few and far between. But this was not. It had nothing to do with medicine, really. The only medicine that was relevant to this was just because she is the doctor, so she thought like a doctor. Let me, go into sick bay, let me do a scan on myself. But it's really fun to see weekly spotlights on a different character, and that's when we start to really love the characters. When you get a Geordi episode, when you get a Data episode, when you get a Riker episode, like not the Troy episodes, but no, I'm just kidding. But that's good stuff. We didn't see a ton of that in the first 3 seasons as much, right?
No, and we like this. When another thing that makes this episode special, and it's funny because I would have thought that I would have heard about this episode, because people always talk about the great Next Generation episodes. Yesterday's Enterprise and these kinds of things come up title wise. I've heard another title, City on the Edge of Forever or something. Is
Mm-hmm.
it? So, like, these are the titles that have circulated, throughout the conversation of Next Generation. I haven't, I can't recall people saying to me, "Remember Me" as being one of the good episodes, and to me, this was up there. There's certain parts that could have gone better a little bit here and there, but it did start a little bit slow. But once it got going, I felt like we were in a bad dream that you just want to wake up from. But her being a doctor, using the scientific method, trying to, just figure out what is right, what's wrong, what she can find. I like when she's, for example, talking to the computer and she's like, I bet you don't know the answer to this one.
Yeah. She had a little bad. It's funny that she didn't look at the computer as a teammate, but an adversary. She's like, don't tell me
Yeah.
I'm crazy, computer. You work for me.
Yeah.
Like when she caught the computer, when she said, like, do I have like the skills required to carry out such a mission? And the computer says negative. She says, then why am I the only person on the ship? And they were just like, brr, brr, like does not compute. And she's like,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. She gave the computer a meltdown. And
Yeah.
that was great because she loved doing that. And that showed to me that she kept her wits about her the whole time. Actually, I really think that Picard looked good in this episode too. Picard showed a lot of faith in when he shows faith in his crew members, it makes him look like a great leader. And that's a great leadership qualities when you're able to show confidence and faith in somebody that you trust and you say the right words that encourage them. And to me, that's the sign of leadership is being able to encourage somebody, bring the best out of them, and say the right things that motivate them. That's good leadership. And there was a moment there when Picard says, your word has always been good enough for me.
Yeah, that's the Picard we love finally coming out.
That,
That's not first
yeah.
season Picard. First season Picard would be like, not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was nice. Yes, no, you're totally right. A good leader is one that puts their hand on your shoulder and says, I got you, or I trust you, or you're the best we have, And he does that. Now, there was a tiny droplet of him just saying, well, I mean, I don't believe you and I think you're crazy, but I'm going to show you a bit of good faith and just so you know that I don't know. I feel like there was just the tiniest touch of like, I'm just saying this to be nice, but whatever it was, or maybe that's
Yeah.
just the way Patrick Stewart plays it because Patrick Stewart, for all of his acting excellence, he does, I feel like I wouldn't say he's lacking, but he's strange. He delivers things strangely when it comes to joyful things or sweet moments. For example, if you need somebody to be authoritative and commanding and an ambassador or a diplomat or somebody that's fair, an arbiter, is amazing, great voice for it. But if the line is like, I loved you, or I love you, I've always loved you, it's going to be hard for him to deliver that and us go like, nah, come on, you don't love anybody. No, he'll be like, I love you.
Yeah.
There'll be something. It was just there's certain things that I don't know. Maybe if we saw it, I'm sure he would knock it out of the park. But
No,
you know what I mean?
he would say it the way he said it to Loaxana Troy in Menage a Trois. Remember that
Yeah.
episode?
Yeah.
At the end, he was like, "My love, how could you ever leave me? I, it's like it doesn't sound sincere in certain ways. There's certain tones in which it's not his best octave for emotional resonance.
And what's
It,
interesting, sorry, just to finish up
yeah.
on that, I'm just thinking out loud here. But what's interesting is they started him off a lot rougher. And then they realized that Patrick Stewart is not that high up on the rough scale. So they softened him. Now, he's not down here all warm and fuzzy, but they softened him. And this is where he's landed. And it's a much better fit. And comparatively,
Mm-hmm.
Avery Brooks, they started him off softer because the character was supposed to be young, bright-eyed, naive, a lot like how Bashir was. That's why Alexander Siddig was considered for the role. And sometimes that didn't fit with Avery. Like sometimes they would give him like silly or goofy things like a la Moraine or giggling on the beach. And that just didn't quite work with the gravitas that he held. So they roughed it up. They moved up to him. And so then they adjusted for him, but in a different way. And then you had what we ended up with a few seasons later, which was magnificent, same as this. So it's just an interesting dichotomy of they kind of started off like that, but they both ended up finding a really good sweet spot for both captains. But sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's what I'm saying. It's about dialing in that tone, and that's why I said when he says those kinds of words about, I think he said something to Riker before about just don't worry, I've got your back. Something it was referred to in that way. I think there was some moment in which he lets Riker know, no matter what, I'm going to stand with you or something to that effect. But Picard says to her, "Your word has always been good enough for me." And I thought, oh, that's a great way for Picard to be emotional without being emotional, and so it was a good tone. And going back to Gates McFadden and her performance and tone that she took, there was a moment there when she goes to see Wesley and she says, "Wesley, I need you to try to do this and that." And he looks at her and she says to him, "You don't believe me."
Yeah, ouch.
And the way she said it was it was like, like a mom that's really been hurt. Like, like.
Et tu, Brute? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it resonated with me emotionally and actually reminded me of the moment where Cisco is with Grandpa Cisco, and they're doing the test on him to see if he's a changeling, and he's like,
"Yes, you're right." Yeah,
yeah, and he says to him, "I need you to do the test," and Joseph Cisco's like, "What? Whoa, wait a minute! You don't trust me? You don't believe me? And it was kind of that kind of a moment, like, you don't believe me. You don't. There's a sensitivity there between a child and a parent when there's not an unconditional kind of trust there, and
God,
when that trust is broken.
I miss Brock Peters so much. Just you talking about that scene got me emotional. I'm like, God, I miss that guy. When the way he would deliver things, like when he was scolding Cisco for that moment, it felt like he was scolding all of us a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like we're like,
Yeah.
"I'm sorry, Brock. I'm sorry."
Yeah, I was
He's
like, I
just
didn't
doing what
believe
he
you
thinks.
either.
He's just doing what he thinks is best.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
anyway,
Exactly.
we're so lucky
We
to
were
have
all
him.
apologizing for that. And I was feeling that for Wesley because I was like, oh man, this is that moment when, as a kid, you're like, I don't think you're right. When the kind of moment when you realize you don't think your parent is the greatest person of all time. You're like, wait a minute, this person could make mistakes, let's say, like they're
Bite your
fallible.
tongue. Yeah.
And I felt like that's Wesley was having that kind of a moment right there, like, Mom, I don't think you're right. Like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you're going crazy. And at some point, I thought she was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what we're led to believe at first. Yeah. I mean, we'll let you know what. Let's hit our break. Let's talk about this a bit more. But I think it's all in the delivery. And, I think that's what did it so well. But we'll be right back on the seventh rule, everybody.